After all that talk about the sun being the great cosmic ruler, I'm guessing the moon just plays second fiddle in traditional astrology.
By the waxing and waning light of the heavens. Ella, far from it. The moon isn't just a supporting act, it's the force that governs change, growth, and everything in the sublunary sphere.
The sublunary? What now? Sounds like something out of an ancient philosophy textbook.
Well, that's because it is. The sublunary sphere is how the ancients referred to everything beneath the moon's domain, our world, full of motion, cycles, and constant flux. The moon is more than just a moody sphere in the sky. It's the bridge between the heavens and the earth.
In modern astrology, the moon is all about the subconscious, feelings, and inner world. Are you telling me there's more to it?
Much more. The moon is the ultimate shapeshifter, the timekeeper of nature, and the ruler of life's ebb and flow. Its role in traditional astrology is as dynamic and essential as the sun's.
Sounds like we've got a lot to unpack.
We certainly do, Ella. Let's dive into the mysteries of the moon. Welcome back to the 9th episode of Learning Traditional Astrology. I'm Arlo, your guide to classical astrology, and today we're shifting our focus to the ever-changing, ever-influential moon. With me, as always, is our fantastic team, Ella, Clara, Katrina, and Cherry. Let's hear those introductions.
Thanks, Arlo. I'm Ella. I've been studying modern astrology for 3 years, and I'm still getting used to traditional methods. The sun made sense as the center of everything, but I'm curious to see how the moon fits into all this.
I'm Clara. My focus is on the historical and philosophical foundations of astrology. The moon has played a crucial role in many cultures, so I'm interested to see how traditional astrology conceptualizes it.
I'm Katrina. I love uncovering hidden patterns, and since the moon is constantly changing, I have a feeling this is going to be an interesting discussion.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cherry, your robotic assistant, here to provide historical sources and references throughout our discussion.
Fantastic. Today, we're diving into the moon in traditional astrology, and trust me, this is going to be fascinating.
If the sun was the king of the sky, does that make the moon the queen?
By the tides and the stars, Katrina, exactly. The sun rules the day, and the moon reigns over the night. They are the two great luminaries, each vital in its own right.
Right? The sun gives light to everything. The moon just reflects it.
But don't underestimate the power of reflection, Ella. The moon isn't just a passive mirror, it's the link between the heavens and earth. In some charts, it's even more important than the sun.
That has been the case throughout history. Many cultures placed greater emphasis on the moon. Hindu astrology and traditional Arabic astrology both use lunar cycles as the foundation for timekeeping and prediction.
And visually, the moon and sun appear to be the same size in the sky. That's why so many ancient traditions treated them as equals, even as opposites.
Great points. In the classical worldview, the moon was seen as the closest planet to Earth, marking the boundary between the sublunary sphere, our world of change and decay, and the unchanging heavens.
So is that why the moon is linked to emotions and constant change?
Partly, but another reason is its speed. It zips through the zodiac in just 28 days. No other planet moves that fast. The second fastest, Mercury, takes nearly a year to make the same journey.
And don't forget, the moon actually looks like it's changing. It goes from crescent to full to dark again, shifting before our eyes in a way no other planet does.
That makes a lot of sense. But what does the moon actually mean in a birth chart?
That's exactly what we're about to explore. Let's uncover the moon's secrets. Cherry, what does Valens tell us about the moon?
Vettius Valens writes, "The moon, lit by the reflection of the sun's light and possessing a borrowed light, in a nativity indicates a person's life, body, mother, conception, beauty, appearance, sight, living together, that is, legitimate marriage, nurture, the older brother, housekeeping, the queen, the mistress of the house, possessions, fortune, the city, the assembly of the people, gains, expenses, the household, voyages, travel, and wanderings. It does not provide straight pathways because of Cancer."
Some of that makes sense to me. In modern astrology, the moon is definitely linked to the mother and nurturing. But the body, I always thought the sun was the main indicator of vitality and life force.
By the rhythms of the heavens. Ella, that's modern astrology speaking. In traditional astrology, the sun represents the life force, vitality, and intellect, while the moon governs the physical body, emotions, and daily rhythms. Think of them as complementary forces. The sun is the guiding light of reason and purpose, while the moon reflects experience, adaptation, and the ever-changing nature of life.
That actually makes sense. The moon literally changes shape, just like our bodies change throughout life. It reflects the light of the sun, so maybe in a symbolic way, it absorbs and responds rather than initiates.
Precisely. Hellenistic philosophers like Aristotle and Ptolemy saw the moon as the intermediary between the heavens and earth. It absorbs planetary influences and transmits them to us, just like it reflects the sun's light. That's why in horary astrology, the moon is so crucial. It can link two planets that might not even be in aspect with each other, acting as a bridge between different energies.
All right, I can follow that logic. But what's with the moon being connected to travel? That one seems a little random.
It actually makes a lot of sense. The moon moves the fastest through the zodiac, constantly changing, never staying in one place for long. That movement reflects the nature of travel, shifting circumstances, and transitions.
Spot on, Clara. To understand the link a bit better, let's dive into the moon's dignities and debilities. That's where things really get fascinating. Last time, we explored the dignities and debilities of the sun. Now, let's turn our attention to the moon. Where does it reign? And where does it struggle?
The moon rules Cancer and is exalted in Taurus, right?
By the radiant light of the moon. You nailed it, Clara. Since the sun finds its strength in Leo, the middle of summer, it makes perfect sense that the moon is at home in the neighboring sign of Cancer.
That makes sense symbolically, but Valens says the moon does not provide straight pathways because of Cancer. What does that mean?
Think about how a crab moves, Ella.
Sideways?
Exactly. Unlike the sun, which moves in a direct, straightforward manner, Leo style, the moon, especially in Cancer, takes an indirect approach. It doesn't charge forward like Aries or Leo but moves with intuition, adapting to its surroundings. This is part of why the moon is associated with wandering, travel, and unpredictability. And let's not forget, before highways and railroads, the sea was the primary route for long-distance travel. The moon, which rules the tides, naturally became associated with journeys and movement.
That makes sense for Cancer, but what about Taurus? Why is the moon exalted there?
Ah, Katrina, an excellent question. Taurus, a fixed earth sign, provides the moon with stability, grounding its ever-changing nature. The moon thrives when it has a steady, nourishing environment. Think of the fertile earth, the comfort of home, and the stability needed for growth. Plus, both Venus, the ruler of Taurus, and the moon share a moist quality, which in traditional astrology was associated with fertility, nourishment, and life itself.
So, if the moon is strong in Cancer and Taurus, where does it struggle?
The moon is in detriment in Capricorn and in fall in Scorpio. Capricorn, ruled by Saturn, is all about discipline, efficiency, and long-term planning, qualities that clash with the moon's emotional, fluctuating nature. Here, emotions can feel restricted, like a dam holding back the tides. Scorpio, on the other hand, is a water sign, but its depth can be overwhelming. The moon prefers fluidity, but in Scorpio, emotions become intense, brooding, and sometimes even stagnant, like the deep, dark waters of the ocean where light barely reaches.
So basically, the moon does best when it can ebb and flow, and struggles when it's forced to be too rigid or too stagnant?
Precisely, Ella. The moon isn't just about emotion, it's about change, movement, and adaptation. And when it's in a sign that doesn't allow for that natural rhythm, it struggles.
You mentioned that the moon is moist, which is why it's comfortable in Venus-ruled Taurus. What temperament did the ancients assign to the moon?
The ancients classified the moon as phlegmatic, cold and moist. This moisture is what makes the moon so nurturing. Just like the nightly dew replenishes the earth, the moon encourages growth and the ebb and flow of life itself.
Cold and moist? That's an interesting contrast to the sun's warmth and fire. So the moon is important for life, but not in the same way the sun is?
Exactly, Ella. The sun is active. It reveals, illuminates, and energizes. It's about action, clarity, and purpose. The moon, on the other hand, is receptive. It nourishes, reflects, and adapts. The sun blazes in the sky, commanding attention, while the moon subtly changes, shifting through phases, guiding us through the night. It's the difference between the steady heat of the day and the cooling mist of evening.
That sounds a lot like how the moon is linked with emotions in astrology. Always changing, always fluctuating.
Precisely, Katrina. The moon governs emotions because emotions, like the tides, are fluid. One moment they rise, the next they recede. That's why the moon is also connected to memory, intuition, and the unconscious mind.
The unconscious? That sounds a lot like modern astrology's take on the moon. Psychological, hidden, all about feelings. But traditional astrology is usually more external, right?
Ah, Ella, the modern view sees the moon as purely internal, but in traditional astrology, the moon isn't just about personal emotions, it's about the rhythms of life itself. It's the mother nurturing a child, the constant cycle of birth, growth, and change. It's what governs daily affairs, the physical body, and even public reputation. The moon reflects the world back to us, shaping our experiences.
The moon is considered a feminine planet, right?
That's correct, Katrina, but remember, in ancient astrology, masculine and feminine didn't mean gender as we think of it today. It was about active versus receptive, direct versus adaptable. The sun's nature is to push forward, to drive action. The moon's nature is to receive, nurture, and guide.
That brings us to sect. The moon is the ruler of the nocturnal sect, right?
Yes, sect is one of the fundamental distinctions in traditional astrology. The moon rules the night, just as the sun rules the day. If a person is born at night, their chart follows the nocturnal sect, meaning the moon is the dominant luminary. Venus thrives in this environment because her moist nature is in harmony with the moon's.
And Mars? What happens to Mars in a nocturnal chart?
A great question, Ella. Mars, which is naturally hot and dry, finds relief in the coolness of night. Instead of being an aggressive, reckless warrior like in a diurnal chart, a nocturnal Mars is tempered, more strategic, less impulsive. That's why traditional astrologers considered Mars less destructive in night charts.
So, in a way, the moon doesn't just govern emotions, it also balances out the more intense planetary influences?
Exactly, Clara. The moon isn't just a passive receiver. It harmonizes, regulates, and distributes planetary influences in the chart. That's why it plays such a central role in traditional astrology. Now that we've established its temperament and sect, let's explore its physical and health significations next.
Valens also said that the moon represents a person's life and body. That sounds more like the sun to me. What's that about?
By the waxing and waning light of the heavens. Ella, the moon governs the body in ways the sun does not. The sun provides life force and vitality, but the moon is what sustains, nurtures, and regulates life. Since it's the closest celestial body to Earth, it was seen as having direct influence over physical health, bodily functions, and even growth cycles. A strong, well-placed moon was an indicator of good health, while an afflicted moon could signal issues with vitality, digestion, or emotional instability.
So, if someone has a weak moon, does that mean they're just sickly, or does it show up in other ways?
A weak or afflicted moon can manifest in various ways, not just physically, but emotionally as well. Cherry, what does William Lilly have to say about a poorly placed moon?
Lilly writes, a mere vagabond, idle person, hating labor, a drunkard, a sot, one of no spirit or forecast, delighting to live beggarly and carelessly, one content in no condition of life, either good or ill.
Exactly. In traditional astrology, an afflicted moon could indicate someone who struggles with stability, whether physically, emotionally, or even socially. It could point to laziness, mood swings, or excessive indulgence, particularly in food or drink.
That actually makes sense. The moon controls the tides, so if it's unsteady in a chart, maybe that's why people with an afflicted moon struggle to keep their lives balanced.
What about the moon's connection to the body? What parts does it rule?
The moon governs the stomach, breasts, and ovaries. Its monthly cycle is also directly tied to the menstrual cycle, which is why it has such strong associations with fertility and reproduction.
So the moon primarily signifies women, then?
Yes, Ella. The moon has always been linked to femininity, just as the sun is linked to masculinity. But remember, this isn't about modern gender roles, it's about fundamental principles of nature. The sun represents action, leadership, and outward vitality, while the moon represents nurturing, receptivity, and inner rhythms.
And since the sun represents the father, the moon represents the mother, right?
Precisely, Katrina. The moon is the quintessential symbol of motherhood, nurturing, and protection. It governs care, intuition, and emotional security, everything a mother provides.
A lot of ancient cultures even linked the moon's phases to the stages of a woman's life. The waxing moon represented the maiden, like the Greek goddess Artemis. The full moon represented the mother, like Demeter, and the waning moon symbolized the crone, like Hecate, the goddess of the underworld.
Brilliant observation, Clara. The moon doesn't just govern the body, it governs the natural cycles of life itself. And that's why it plays such a crucial role in traditional astrology. Now that we've covered the moon's physical significations, let's explore its other significations in the next section.
What metal is associated with the moon?
By the shimmering tides, Katrina, that would be silver. Its color and reflective quality perfectly mirror the moon's ever-changing light.
That makes sense. Silver is malleable and adaptable, just like the moon's association with change and fluidity. It's valuable but not as rigid or unyielding as gold, kind of like how the moon is more receptive compared to the sun.
Exactly, Clara. The sun and gold represent fixed radiance, while the moon and silver embody reflection, adaptability, and intuition.
And let me guess, the moon's day of the week is Monday?
Super, Ella. No surprises there. Monday, or Moon's Day, has long been associated with introspection, emotions, and the ebb and flow of moods.
What about its greater years?
The moon's greater years are 108. Each planet has assigned time periods in traditional astrology, used for longevity calculations and timing techniques.
That's a pretty significant number. And what about plants and herbs? What does the moon govern?
A fantastic question, Ella. Let's see what the great William Lilly has to say on this. Cherry, can you quote the relevant text?
Certainly. Lilly writes, "Those herbs which are subject to the moon have soft and thick juicy leaves, of a waterish or a little sweetish taste. They love to grow in watery places and grow quickly into a juicy magnitude."
That definitely sounds like the moon, moist, nourishing, and abundant. Does Lilly provide any examples?
Yes, he lists the colwort, cabbage, melon, gourd, pompion, onion, mandrake, poppy, lettuce, rape, the linden tree, mushrooms, endive, and all trees or herbs that have round, shady, great spreading leaves and are little fruitful.
That's interesting. Many of these plants have medicinal or even mystical properties. Poppy, for instance, has been associated with sleep and dreams, fitting for the moon's connection to the subconscious.
And mushrooms grow in dark, damp places, often hidden beneath the surface. That's very in line with the moon's themes of mystery and cycles of growth.
Brilliant observations. The moon's influence isn't just about emotions, it's deeply tied to nature, growth, and even hidden knowledge. Everything it rules has that same quality of changeability, receptivity, and connection to the unseen.
I have to admit, the moon's role in traditional astrology is much more intricate than I thought. Arlo, what are these symbols? They look different from the planets. Are they related to the moon?
By the shifting tides. Ella, you've got a sharp eye. These are the lunar nodes, known as the head and tail of the dragon. They're not physical planets, but mathematical points where the moon's orbit crosses the ecliptic. And trust me, they have a powerful impact.
I've heard of them. They represent karma and life purpose, right? The North Node is where we're meant to grow, and the South Node is our past life baggage.
Ah, Ella, that's the modern spin on it. But traditional astrology sees them differently. The nodes aren't about spiritual destiny. They function like amplifiers, magnifying whatever they touch. The North Node increases, while the South Node diminishes. Cherry, can you pull up a historical source for us?
Certainly, Arlo. Here's what Al-Qabisi, a 10th century Arabic astrologer, said about the lunar nodes. "The head of the dragon is male, and it is likewise a fortune, and its nature is composed of the nature of Jupiter and Venus. It signifies a kingdom, fortune, and assets. Some say its nature is increase, if it is with benefics, it increases their fortune, and if it is with malefics, it increases their malice. But the tail of the dragon is bad, and its nature is composed of the nature of Saturn and Mars. It signifies depression, fall, and poverty. Some say its nature is diminution, if it is with benefics, it reduces their fortune, if it is with malefics, it reduces their malice."
So, the North Node amplifies, whether good or bad, and the South Node diminishes?
Precisely, Katrina. The North Node is like a cosmic magnifier, amplifying whatever planet it touches, while the South Node is a drain, weakening or reducing what it influences.
Wait, so does that mean the North Node is always good and the South Node is always bad?
Not necessarily. That's a common misconception. If the North Node joins a benefic like Venus or Jupiter, yes, it can bring abundance. But if it's with a malefic like Mars or Saturn, it can blow their negative effects out of proportion. The South Node, on the other hand, can reduce harm when paired with a malefic, but it can also weaken benefics, making their positive influence less effective.
That's very different from modern interpretations. So, in traditional astrology, the nodes don't carry moral weight, they just intensify or diminish whatever they touch?
Exactly. No past lives, no soul lessons, just raw celestial mechanics. The nodes are wildcards, and their impact depends entirely on what they're interacting with.
That's fascinating. So if someone has Venus with the North Node, they might experience amplified love and beauty, but if Saturn is there instead, they could have exaggerated struggles and restrictions?
By the shifting tides, Katrina, you're catching on fast. The lunar nodes are potent, but they don't act alone. You have to consider the whole chart to see how they play their part.
All right, Arlo, I'll admit, that's an interesting way to look at them.
And there's more. The nodes also have a broader, almost karmic role in connecting individuals to larger societal or fated experiences. They can indicate how a person interacts with the world at large, but we'll save that discussion for another time.
Sounds like the nodes deserve their own deep dive.
Absolutely. They play a crucial role in shaping both personal and collective experiences. But for now, let's wrap up our discussion on the moon and its many layers of influence. Katrina, let's see if you've been taking notes. Can you give us a rundown of everything we've learned about the moon today?
Of course, Arlo. Here's what we covered. The moon is the nocturnal luminary, ruling over the night and influencing change, emotions, and the physical world. Its temperament is cold and moist, making it associated with adaptability, intuition, and nurturing qualities. It signifies queens, women, mothers, common people, travelers, sailors, messengers, fishermen, drunkards, midwives, and nurses. A well-dignified moon bestows softness, tenderness, and a caring, protective nature. Those with a strong moon are intuitive and in tune with their emotions, capable of deep empathy and support for others. An ill-dignified moon can indicate instability, carelessness, laziness, and indulgence, sometimes even leading to aimlessness or escapism. The moon rules silver among metals, Monday among the days of the week, and its greater years are 108.
By the phases of the moon. That was an excellent summary, Katrina. Step by step, we're building our mastery of traditional astrology.
This was fascinating. If you enjoyed this deep dive, let us know your moon sign in the comments, and we'll give you a quick delineation.
And if you haven't watched our last episode on the sun, go check it out. You don't want to miss the full picture of the two great luminaries.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts. Keep learning, keep exploring, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Transmission complete. See you next time.